So trade with another country is then used to vent off this surplus and to bring the production possibility frontier back to full capacity. So so according to this, vent for surplus is when you have surplus in the economy, then you can trade that surplus with the economies which don't have that resource, and that could fasten the growth and development. So growth process in Adam Smith model, it is in this manner. So initially widening of markets by increasing investments, and then division of labor, which is also specialization of labor. Uh, First and foremost guy to give division of labor concept was Adam Smith, and then division of labor, which later increases productivity. In the second subsequent stage, increase in national income output will lead to increase in savings, which increase in savings they further increase investment. And, in this sequence, the economic growth will be higher and higher. So this is how economic grows like a tree. So yeah, Adam Smith's idea about development influenced on the subsequent classical and neoclassical writers. His emphasis on capital accumulation in the development process has been fundamental element and has been incorporated in contemporary growth theories. The concept of stationary state is an integral part of his development theory, and his analysis is called the theory of growth and stagnation. And Adam Smith's prescription in terms of division of labor, capital accumulation, expansion of markets, and promotion of interest of farmers, traders, and manufacturers by the liberal government were very useful for conducive economic development. And to conclude with the Adam Smith theory, too much reliance on Smith's prescription and absence of active state participation might push the underdeveloped countries to the brink of stagnation. So, as we know, most of the underdeveloped countries, they basically lack investments or bulk investments, which any of the countries lack, and due to which we cannot go for larger investments, and yeah, I'm sorry. Adam Smith has not suggested the way how the economy can come out of stationary state. This was one of his prime negative, and he appears to have explained the process of upswing. He has explained the business cycles, but he has not advocated any policies to increase from downswing to upswing. So yeah, just give me a minute. There is a disturbance in the background. Raji. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So yeah, this is all about Adam Smith theory, and in the next we will take up Ricardo's. So yeah, the next one to take up, we are taking up is Ricardo's theory of distribution and growth. So Ricardo never propounded any theory of development. He basically simply discussed the idea of distribution, which it in which he also gives some ideas about how the economy should be incentivized to growth. So and mainly Ricardo's analysis is detour from the economic growth theories. He explained his analysis based on the concepts of marginal and surplus principles. So his book was The Principles of Political Economy and Taxation, which is again a very important question for any examinations. So yeah, David Ricardo, to determine the laws which regulate this distribution is a principal problem in the political economy. So this was his key thing based on which he has constructed his theory. So, Ricardo's theory is important for the following reasons. Provides us with the vision of the future. In back in those days, which was where agriculture was the only economic activity. So he provides a picture of how we can overcome this scenario and stuff. And he also explains why, in Ricardo's view, investment opportunities decline. Explains in simple terms the reason for rent. So the rent term, which it was given a scientific touch by Ricardo. Historical backdrop: Corn laws imposed a tariff on the importation of agricultural products, and British Parliament was dominated by the land-owning classes back then, before before what we can call industrial revolution. So, in his analysis, he assumes that corn is the only product or only economic activity in economic activity which is happening, and so all the national income which the country is producing, it is solely through the corn. So this was based on uh, production of corn. He has proposed his theory, distribution and production. Ricardo sought to show how changes in distribution affect production, and Ricardo contended that as rent rises, squeezing profits, and as profits are squeezed, economic growth declines. And then comes the stage of stationary stage, which as proposed by Adam Smith. He also proposes the same thing, that there is a stationary state in the economy, and the primary assumptions um, of Ricardo was Say's law, which says supply creates its own demand, and whatever is saved is invested, accumulated. So you must, I presume you have a fair knowledge of macroeconomic theory about Say's laws and Keynesian economics. And then labor theory of value: prices are proportional to quantities of embodied labor. Agriculture is labor intensive and manufacture is capital intensive. So these are the assumptions he has taken up. And also land land is fixed and differs in fertility. So land has inelastic supply and differs in fertility, and differences in fertility are is the prime basis for rent. So he has given why rent arises is um, because of differences in fertilities of land in different places. So because of which rent arises, and he has taken up three classes: workers, landowners, and capitalists. These are the three classes of human beings which are prevalent in the economy. And the functions of worker was to provide his labor in the farm, and his income would be wages, and the wages were paid at subsistence level and not at the marginal level. And determination of income: for income determination, he has made use of Malthusian theory of population. And landowners, they do not have any economic function, and they receive their income as rents. and determination of income, difference between the output on the most and least fertile lands in cultivation. So I was saying rent is determined based on the difference of fertility of lands. And a third category is capitalist. They save, accumulate capital and organize production, and their income is profits. So determination of income is residual after paying wages and rents. Whatever left over is there, the profits will be taken over by capitalists. And competition among capitalists equalizes the rate of profit in all industries. And there comes the stationary state. So this was, we can say, a follow up or followed from Adam Smith theory. So yeah, rent return to a factor of production for which there are no substitutes or no good substitutes. Those only those products, only those factors will get rent. So yeah, in according to his theory, he has taken land as a factor of production for which rent have to be paid. Example, land, a particular location, etc., etc. Ricardian rent. Ricardo defined rent as following: different difference between output on the most and least fertile land in cultivation, and difference between costs of production on the most and least fertile lands in cultivation. Uh, since since the production or whatever you can say as the difference is due to the fertility of the land. So this rent should be acknowledged to the landlord. So this was his basic idea. In the initial stage, say we can say in the first year, when suppose in his background, to say in his own words, so when there is no production or any agricultural activity in the earth, so there are only two things: wages were there for agricultural production for a laborer, and then the rest of the things were profits mark up the rest of the thing. And again, there is cutting down of land, say clearing of land furthermore, and the old lands, they become partially less fertile, because of which rents arise for the land which is more fertile. So in the second stage, this is the, you can say, this is the old piece of land where this much portion of produce is lost, because there were, back then there were no fertilizers, no improved technologies of agriculture. So it keeps on going. So there are increase in infertile lands. At the same time, there is a clearing up of forest, and more fertile lands are brought under cultivation. So finally, at a stage, all profits are exhausted. So you can see, at this stage, all profits are exhausted, and only thing which prevail in the economy are rents and wages. So in this stage, he has marked up as stationary state. And the end, is this the end of capitalism? This could be the end of capitalism according to him. Implications: why was Ricardo's position regarded as the con law? Because yeah, and these are some of the things which I have put on here to question yourself, like why Ricardo has taken prime importance for cornice. Back in those days, there were no any major activities. Whatever small crafts or whatever were there, they were minor industries, and agriculture was one of the major industry in those days. Whatever trade it, say spices or cotton or whatever it is, they are all related to agriculture. So he has taken a prime position to corn. And what policies did Ricardo recommend? So Ricardo recommended to cut down the wages in the subsequent growth stages, prof- so as there are some profits left out with the capitalist, where to which he can later he can do investments, and there is continuous process of economic development. Also, since he has believed in Malthusian population theory, he says effective checks need to be put on the population growth. Otherwise, there will be more population growth than food production. So, if you can remember, population grows in geometric progression, whereas food grows in arithmetic progression. So yeah, back then most of the classes were landlord classes. So his idea of cutting down wages does suit for uh, the people back then. So this is all about Ricardo's theory. So I have gave the brief about Ricardo theory, and what in examination perspective, what is important is like in a couple of years back, like when you see 2016 or 15 paper, they have in IES examination, they have asked it to diagrammatically represent wages, profits, and rents in Ricardo's theory. And also, you can expect this question of diagrammatical representation of Ricardo's theory of distribution in ARS as well. So this is mainly important for 5 marks question. So yeah, next to come in this line is Karl Marx. So you must have heard about Karl Marx. He's a great philosopher, economist, historian, political theorist, sociologist, and also journalist and a revolutionary socialist. He's the father of scientific socialism, and he is epitomized as the Marx, the prophet, and is ranked with Christ and Muhammad if we are to judge him by the followers. So, yeah, Marx theory of economic development, gravest and the most penetrating examination of the process of capitalist development. And his major assumptions were there are two principal classes in the society. They are bourgeois class and proletariat class. Wages of the workers are determined at subsistence level of living, and labor is the main source of value generation. There are two class. Bourgeois class is nothing but capitalists. These are the haves, and he also calls them as oppressors. That means they have lots of money. And proletariats are the worker class, and they are the have-nots, or they are the oppressive classes. And factors of production are owned by the capitalist, and capitalists exploit the worker. And labor is a homogeneous and perfectly mobile. National income is distributed in terms of wages and profits. And Marx he has contributed the theory in three respects. That is, economic interpretation of history, motivating forces of capitalist development, an alternative path of planned economic development that is from capitalist to socialist. He in his economic growth theory, he has taken four concepts, that is materialistic interpretation of history, surplus value, capital accumulation, and downfall of capitalism. The term surplus value, it was basically given by Marx, um, and so yes, this is one of the important question, and in this theory, the Marx economic growth theory is very important in examination view. There are several key terms and several important things to be remembered in Marx theory. So in materialistic interpretation of history. So all historical events are the results of continuous economic struggle between different groups and classes in a society. Main cause of struggle is conflict between mode of production and relation of production. And he defined mode of production as particular arrangement of production in a society that determines the entire social, political, and religious way of living. So, to give example of mode production, it could be capitalistic mode of production, socialistic mode of production, mixed way of production, or say back in those days, it was mainly barter mode of production, and relation of production relates to the class struggle of the society, and these are the relation of production. It is characterized by organization of labor, that is the division of labor, and secondly by the geographical environment on the knowledge of uses of and knowledge of use of resources by the people, and technical means and process and stage of science. So yeah, according to him, it's mode of production and relation of production. The conflict between these two are very usual in the history. Surplus value. One of the key thing was it was the key term given by Marx. So economic basis of the class struggle under capitalism. Uh, Class struggle is simply the outcome of accumulation of surplus value in the hands of few capitalists. Labor is the sole source of value in a commodity, and capitalism is divided into two groups, that is, worker who sell their labor power and the capitalist who own the means of production. And so yeah, it is minimum. So yeah, capitalist, he never pays the full wages. This leads to the law of miserable minimum wages of working class. So he always keeps the subsistence level of wages below than what uh, s- below than the standards to which they are need to be kept. And Marx calls the unpaid labor as surplus labor. So like this is the pictorial representation. But when we see the net output of the economy is given as value of materials and machinery, which was taken up as C, that is constant capital, and V is variable capital, that is amount of labor used during a particular period, and whatever the output which is not given the value of C, and V is the surplus value. Capital accumulation. Surplus value leads to capital accumulation, and the capitalist always tries to maximize his profit by three ways: by that is by increasing working hours, and by diminishing number of hours required to produce labor subsistence, and increase the productivity of labor. And Marx established three relationship between constant capital, variable capital, and surplus value. According to him, organic composition of capital is a ratio of constant to variable capital, or and the second one is rate of surplus value, or degree or rate of exploitation is ratio of surplus value to variable capital. And this Rat- rate of surplus is one thing which through which he can exploit the labor class. So these two ratios are very important, as they are frequently being asked in any exam you can take, say in UGC net or in ASRB net or wherever. These two ratios are very important. And in the final stage is the downfall of capitalism. This is by the replacing workers by machines, which lead to the reduction in surplus value. So industrial reserve army is created. Industrial reserve army is nothing but when when the capitalist when the capitalist substitutes more and more of machinery for labor, there is overproduction in the economy, which is not being unutilized. When you take the Say's law, he says whatever amount be economy be produced, it will all be consumed, or you can say supply creates its own demand. That means you can produce any amount of goods which will be consumed or further invested in the economy. But contrasting to this, Marx says there is industrial reserve army created. That is, there is some ideal capacity which is lying in the economy. Also, Marx classifies various categories into. He has given departmental schema. So the key term is departmental schema. This is one of again favorite questions for examiners who gave the departmental schema, that is by Marx. Poverty and limited purchasing power of the masses is also one of the factor which led to downfall of capitalism. Overproduction of commodities dump their products in market, which results in the fall of market price and lead to a sharp decline of profit. Finally, capitalism falls and socialism replaces capitalism. This was his main crux. So yeah, and this quote is also important. They straight away put these quotes in the question, and they shoot the questions for us in exams. So capital is like dead labor, which vampire like lives only by sucking living labor and leaves the more labor it sucks. So you can use this quote in any examinations. This is one of the famous quote which economists frequently use. So yeah, some this is a pictorial representation, that is bourgeois class. They keep feeding capital. That means they keep accumulating capital, which is growing in heaps and bounds. Whereas proletariat class, he gets a minute piece of it. This is his Marx interpretation. So yeah, his mathematical interpretation of model. Here I'll be giving what are the different variables which he has taken into account while giving his theory, because these questions might come in the exam. Say what are the factors which Marx has taken, uh, which variables influence production function, like that. So yeah, the production function is same as that of classical theory. He has taken labor, capital, stock of natural resources, and level of technique as the factors which determine in output. And technological progress depends upon investment. The higher the investment, the level of technological progress is also high. And third proposition is investment depends upon rate of profit. Higher the rates of profits, higher are the investments. And fourth proposition is the rate of profit is ratio of profit to the variable capital plus constant capital. So according to Marx, the increase in capital per worker must result in the fall in rate of profit as higher and higher capital is being poured per more capital is being invested. Um, the rate of profit of an industry or capitalist will be declining. And fifth proposition is wages depend on level of investment. Higher investments, more there are more industries coming up, and more industries, they automatically have competition among them, so higher wages. And proposition 6 is employment depends upon level of investment. That is, employment rises only if investment goes up. In other words, employment and investment are directly proportional. So this proposition, you can see many. So you can all of the economists, they primarily rely on investment as a key for employment. Later, even you can see Keynes also, he has put a lot of importance of for investment in his theory. And consumption depends on upon wage bill. Higher the wage bill, higher is the consumption. Whereas when it comes to Keynes, he has given his law of consumption, where consumption does not increase as in when income increases, but it increases in a declining proportion, as said by Keynes. But he accords direct relationship to consumption and wages. And proposition 8 is profit depend upon the level of technology and level of consumer expenditure. So better the level of technology, higher will be the profits, and higher the consumption expenditure, profits will be higher. And in the also I was saying, Marx has gave materialistic interpretation of history, and also he has proposed five stages of growth in his Das Capital. Das Capital is his book, um, his economic uh, growth book. So he uh, gi- so yeah, he has taken up. He has given five stages of economic growth. So that is primitive communalism, slavery, feudalism, capitalism, and socialism. So, in primitive communal stage, people lived in groups, worked on common lands with common tools, and all resources are used in common. Are used in common. Equality in society. The products they produced were shared equally. It led to the development of different crafts and occupation. Barter system began. With social division of labor, the clan began to break into families and development of private property. This paid for the emergence of successive stages. So you can say primitive communal stage as hunting stage, or where there were before the civilization has actually begun. So yeah, this is primitive communism. Followed by primitive stage is slave stage. So slavery system was prevalent. You could see back before 2 or 3 decades, there was a slavery system in African nations, which we could see in, if you want to see in recent history. you can take that date back to Africans. So, and landowners exploit the slaves. Slave work in the land for his master. Landlords acquired more wealth. Later, conflict between mode of production and relation of production. So, in his economic growth theory, he has already uh, said there is always conflict between mode of production and relation of production. Um, in every stage, this is primemost thing that is there in the economy, according to him. And as a result, the slaves rose against their enslavers or landlords, which ultimately lead to the feudalistic stage. So yeah, ancient slavery. In We can see like 3 decades back. 3 decades back, it was prevalent in Africa. Most of the Africans were brought to USA to work as slaves. Prior to that history, most of the history we can see there are slaves and slavery prevalent in those days. And next stage is feudal stage. Kings and lords controlled the land, and aristocratic landowners were exploiting the serfs. The serfs worked like slaves for the feudal lords. Say you can take say if it is a British government, say you can say zamindars as serfs. That means who is just below the landlord. And unlike slave society, the peasants can own a small portion of land for which they have to pay part of their produce to the landlords. Creation of merchant class, which led to the rise of a group of capitalists, ultimately resulting in the conflict between the feudal class and the capitalists. So again, you can see, he has so told, there is a conflict between mode of production and relation of production. So yeah, in feudalistic state, you can see kings and kings' mansions. Those period is marked as feudalistic stage. And next stage to come up is capitalistic stage. Entire economy is guided by market forces. Profit motive rules the society, and this stage is dominated by bourgeois, and law protected their interest. So he says the laws or whatever government, it mostly favored bourgeois or capitalistic class. Again here, the capitalist owns the means of production for individual profit. Worker is free to work and he does not have any means of production, so he cannot produce anything, just he has to give his labor for the capitalist. There is surplus labor. Monopolistic tendencies, yes, only in capitalistic nation, in stage we can see monopolistic production, or monopolies are one of the key features in capitalism. And this capitalism, uh, like again he said, there is a conflict between mode of production and a relation of production. So this capitalism leads to struggle between proletariat and bourgeois, that is between labor class and capitalist, which finally lead to the socialism. So this is a picture of free market capitalism, pyramid of capitalistic system. And the one to finally come up is socialistic stage. So proletariat overthrows bourgeois state, and they start to control means of production. And then proletariat allocates resources of society according to people's need. Then eventually the state disappears, and democratic council of workers run the society. There is no class struggle. Neither the exploiter nor the exploited exist. The reward of every person is determined on the principle of each according to his ability and each according to his needs. So yeah, Marx, he has gave a very beautiful picture of socialism, of how it can be or how it should be. But um, if you take the experiences of USSR or China, it never happened the way in which Marx has proposed. So what you can call is they are all pseudo socialistic countries, or or yeah, pseudo communist. uh, back in picture, they do have the capitalistic nature of economy working, but they label their economies as socialism or communistic countries. And so of Marx theory is materialistic interpretation of history is partially true, and theory of surplus value is unreal. So it is not always that capital is accumulated by capitalists. Marx a false prophet. So what they say is his theory is more of philosophical touch, less of economics. Falling tendency of profits not correct. Marx could not understand flexibility in capitalism, and cyclical theory wrong, and it is static analysis. There is no dynamic analysis. He has forgot the importance of technological developments in the economy. When it comes to the um, adoption of his model by underdeveloped countries, it is less suitable for underdeveloped economies, as he has put primary emphasis on transition from capitalist to socialist, but he has not talked anywhere about the underdeveloped economies or how they should be um, abroad. So yeah, this is all about Marxian theory. The key things to remember in Marxian theory are his book Das Kapital, and then conflict between modes of production and relations of production, and then his three classification: constant capital, variable capital, and surplus value. And next is the ratios, organic composition of capital, and rate of exploitation of capital. And the next one is departmental schema. So yes, these are the important things in the Marxist theory. And yes, this is definitely one of the important theories for your examination. Mm, you can for sure expect one or two questions from this. Uh, since due to time lag, I have skipped Schumpeter theory. Schumpeter theory is also an equally important theory. Please to go refer to Schumpeter theory as well. Uh, so this is about Marx theory. So can we take a 5 minutes break and then we can join?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
We
fine.
can, sir. After 5 minutes, we will continue.
We will continue. Okay. So meanwhile, if anybody has any doubts or any queries, you can. Meanwhile, if anybody is having any queries or doubts, post it in chat box, or you can ask me.
Yeah, I request to all participants, if someone has any query regarding these sessions, please ask to sir, or otherwise put in chat section.
So yeah, Mr. Govind Khule, he has asked to introduce myself in privately. So yeah, Mr. Govind, myself, I'm posing my doctors from ICAR New Delhi. So yeah, that's pretty much introduction about me.
Sir, hello sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually what happened sir, I might be thinking that all
Mm.
are old, so I didn't
No issue, no issue.
introduce you
It's
today.
totally,
So
it's totally fine.
firstly, who
Yeah.
is new here, I introduce sir. Sir is a PhD research scholar at IRI New Delhi, uh, and he also qualified both UGC NET as well as ICR NET examinations. If someone has
Uh,
any query regarding
Miss
any,
Ashish has asked which book we should refer to. For basic understanding, you can refer Jingan. So Jingan is pretty easy and straightforward book. You can always refer to it. And uh, for examination point of view, I would say you can refer any objective book of UGC. What you will what it is like you'll get a fair understand of what are the topic and concepts in development, growth and development from Jingan. But for examination point of view, you have to refer objective books. So I think uh, that book is sufficient enough for both UGC as well as ARS net. If you are if you are appearing for IES or RBI level of exams, then you will have to read a few more books. The one book I can say is by Debashish Ray. That is a beautiful book. Uh, in examination point of view, this chapter is very important. You can see many questions from this growth and development in UGC net as well as in ARS net, and this question and they are pretty straightforward questions. You don't need to have any you don't have to apply anything crucial or something like that. You can straight away answer the questions. So yeah, we will continue with our presentation. So next to come up are roster stages of theories, and then yesterday I think I hope Sharat Elidar sir, he has gave a brief intro about Harrod and Domer model, and then after Harrod and Domer we go to neoclassical model of that is Solo Swan model. So yeah, at first Marx gave 5 stages of growth in his theory, and then followed by Marx theories were less of scientific ones. Rostow, in his development theory, he gave a scientific touch by he has taken separate years and the countries, like he has classified for which country has passed which stage in which year. So his theory is it's more of a scientific one, we can say. And according to Rostow development theory, he has partitioned economic growth into 5 linear stages, that is traditional society, the preconditions for takeoff, drive to maturity, and the age of high mass consumption. In the first stage, the traditional society, that this term defines a country that has not yet started a process of development. A traditional society contains a very high percentage of people involved in agriculture. So we can say prior to British government, or in the first initial decades of our country, we were mostly in this primitive stage where most of us were primarily dependent on agriculture. And in the second stage, that is the preconditions for takeoff, there is investment in new technologies, and the process of development begins when an elite group initiates economic innovatives. For example, investing in new technology, water and supplies, drainage, and transportation systems. These projects will stimulate an increase in productivity. In third stage, that is the takeoff stage, where rapid growth is generated in a limited number of activities, that is foods and food products and stuff. These few takeoff industries achieve technical advance and become more productive. And in fourth stage, that is the drive to maturity, modern technology diffuses to a wide variety of industries, which then experience rapid growth. Comparable to the takeoff industries, the workers become more skilled and specialized. And in fifth stage, that is the age of high mass consumption, the economy shifts from production of heavy industries such as steel and energy to consumer goods in takeoff stage. And in the earlier stage of drive to maturity, more of infrastructure goods, that is steel and energy, were there. And then in the next stages, it is more of consumer goods, example motor vehicles and refrigerators. And so this is a pictorial representation of all the 5 stages and different countries uh, which have achieved. Britain was the first stage to achieve this all the 5 stages, followed by France and USA and Germany, and then comes the Japan, Russia, and China. So initially, Britain experiences in 1750 to 1850, there were very key and very important scientists in the British. There were Newton, you can see Watt, Bessemer, Arkwright. These are a few scientists in British. And the agrarian revolt and enclosure movement. There is a revolution in transport. That is, you could see. The development of steam engine, which led to the revolution in transport infrastructure. Then you can see the steam powered trains and stuff. So yeah, here again it's a repetition. In the stage one of traditional society, there is lack of science and technology, and there are prevalence of wars, and there are also prevalence of famines, frequent famines, and this is more fairly a subsistence economy. And in the next second stage, few industries develop, and surplus capital for development comes through agriculture, and then transportation improves. And in the takeoff stage, manufacturing industries grow rapidly, rapid expansion of infrastructure, new group of leaders wishing change, and in the fourth stage, manufacturing moves into higher level of technology. Economic growth spreads throughout the whole economy, and new industries arrive. That is, there is a diffusion of technology, and in the final stage, there is a third wave of industrial growth, and there are also the rise of green groups in the welfare state. That is, more significance was given to the environment. So this is the summary of Rostow model. I have taken down this in from one of the presentation, but this is if in case in any exam, say in ARS mains or in RBI or so, if they ask for Rostow stages, if there is a lack of time and you need to write more, you can just write this diagram, and instead of writing n number of pages, one picture gives the whole overview of what is Rostow model. So yeah, and this is again a repetition I am taking because there are several things or several concepts in Rostow stages. I cannot write down every single point on the PPT. So in traditional society, limited technology, and it's a pretty much static society. Transitions triggered by external influence or interest or markets, and preconditions to take off: commercial exploitation of agriculture and extractive industry, and installation of physical infrastructure, roads, railways, and emergence of social and polite class. These are some of the key features of roster stage, and take off its development of a manufacturing sector. And one of the key thing is investment in manufacturing should exceed 10% of national income, and development of modern social, economic, and political institutions. And then comes to drive to maturity, development of wider industrial and commercial base. And then is the high mass consumption age, exploitation of commercial advantages in international trade. So why I have put on these two images is this is where the part representation role comes in. So most of the examinations you will be having shortage of time. So under any such circumstance, you can just put a diagram like this and write few points that will be self-understandable, and your question carries much weight. So this is about those two stages of growth. And in the next two presentations, we will take up Harold Dormer model and neoclassical model. So yeah, Harold Dormer model, and again, this is one of very important model. Um, in every year in RBI prelims, you can see at least one of the question from this theory in 2 marks question, and you take any examination, for sure there will be question from Harold Dormer model, because not just in economic perspective, it is quite significant in even in economic development. You can see this was adopted in one of our 5-year plans. So coming to the and also I presume see these models we it's very difficult to present through PPTs until and unless if we have a blackboard. These are quite difficult. I'll just give a brief, hoping that you have already been taught Harrod and Dormer in in your classes. So, introduction, development, and growth are natural phenomena. The modern theory of growth has been developed independently by two economists Roy Harrod in his article An Essay in Dynamic Theory, and E. Domer in his article Capital Expansion, Rate of Growth and Employment. So both of them comes in after picture of Keynesian. So Keynesian's theory was more of a static one. So Miss Sarita, yeah. So yeah, Keynesian's model, he has put a lot of significance to investment for economic growth. If you can recall Keynesian economic model, he says national income or Y is a summation of C plus I plus G plus exports minus imports. If you can remember, that is consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, government, and then exports minus imports. So and then when there is increase in investment, national output or national income increases in the terms of multiplier, and because of which there is increase in employment as well as national income. And this is the static analysis which was proposed by Keynes in the aftermath of 1929's Great Depression. So, motivated by the Keynesian theory, Harrod and Dover, they have presented a dynamic extension of Keynesian analysis of static equilibrium. The model explained the growth rate is influenced by the level of saving and capital productivity. Meanwhile, and then in the aftermath, after the Harrod and Domer, Robert Solow, uh, whom we can call as pioneer in neoclassical economist, he has gave his own model of economic growth, which is also equally important. We'll take it up in the next section. Uh, and the Harrod Domer. And again, I'm telling, I have very briefly took few points, since we cannot cover everything under presentation. So it's a kind of you can say, so for a change in income, there should be a change in investment, which is a growth rate of Y, ensuring equality between in in case of creation, there is inherent equality between investment and savings. Uh, because that assumption, even in Harry Thomas, they have kept it as such, and then they have formulated their theory. Is there any certainty prevailing growth rate needs to ensure such equality? Otherwise, what happens? If there is break in I equals S phenomena, what is the next thing? In the static Keynesian model, temporary gap between I and S are compensated through the automatic adjustment guaranteed by multiplier. Instead, according to Harvard, if overall productivity growth rate does not increase enough, what happens? सो जैसे इसमें क्या कहता था, Keynes said there is equality between investment and savings, and if it is not there, this will be automatically adjusted by multiplier. But Harrod, he has put main emphasis on productivity for the equality between I equals S, and the answers he gave are warranted growth rate, actual growth rate, natural growth rate. Warranted growth rate is the rate of growth at which the economy does not expand indefinitely or go into recession. Actual growth rate, the real rate increase in the country's GDP per year. Natural growth rate, the growth of an economy required to maintain full employment. So, by taking these three growth rates, Harrod has um, explained the dynamics of economic growth. And the HD model is the easiest way to start learning about growth in the long run. The main concepts used are income, saving, and consumption. Income is a function of consumption and savings. If you are an individual, sorry about to say as individual in a country, income is a function of consumption, whatever people consume plus whatever they save. So because of which there is and whatever has been saved, it is assumed that it all of which is saved is invested in the economy. So all income is either saved or consumed. And then capital accumulation. Capital in one period is equals to investment plus proportion of capital which has undergone depreciation. So Keynes, he has not uh, taken down the importance of depreciation, but here they have taken depreciation into account. So capital in the next period, for the next period, is a function of investment in the present period plus also the depreciation that has taken up in the 1 year. So the model uses the concept of capital output ratio, efficiency of production system measured in terms of capital. So they put key emphasis or main emphasis on capital output ratio. That is how much amount of output is produced by by uh, each amount of capital that has been invested. This to show that an economy can produce a lot of output with a little capital or vice versa. We can produce higher amount of capital with a small output, or we can use more amount of capital and less of output can be produced. So uh, what is ideal, or what we need is a less and lesser value of capital output ratio. And rate of growth, they give the rate of growth by the formula G equals savings divided by capital output ratio minus depreciation. And Harrod Dormer model, they take up three growth rates, that is actual growth rate, warranted growth rate, and natural growth rate. So please go refer to your textbooks for this thing. Even if I take for one full-fledged for Harrod Dummer model, that will be less. Uh, Anybody cannot simplify all of it in 5 or 10 minutes. So I uh, I I just request all of you to go back to your textbooks and read it again. So actual growth of rate G is given by propensity to save divided by quantity of capital needed to produce 1 unit of production. That is capital output ratio, where G is then equal to ratio between propensity to save and the current capital output ratio. Warranted growth rate is the growth that leaves everyone satisfied with an increase in production, no more, no less, needed to pursue better resources allocation by implying a necessary increase in investments. And this is also given by propensity to save divided by extra quantity of capital needed to maintain to maintain everyone in a better resource allocation situation. And natural growth rate is the one which gives importance for growth in labor. So that is one that ensures growth that absorbs the available labor force in relation to its productive capacity. So deviations between warranted growth and natural growth rate, and the equality of these three growth rates: actual growth rate, warranted growth rate of growth, and natural growth rate. This is knife edge balance. And once this knife edge is balanced, how what are its consequences and stuff, you have to go back and refer to your textbooks, please. So warranted growth is more than natural growth rate, and then there is a situation where there are excess of capital and savings, and this is the tendency of depression in the economy due to lack of work. Growth rate fails to stimulate a growth in demand, that is the amount of saving that match with the job. That means there are less and less number of jobs in the economy, and economy is at the brink of depression. And when the natural growth rate is higher than warranted growth, there is overwork and inflation. G grows more than it necessary to match saving for labor. There is unemployment and lack of capital investment. So investment need to be taken up so as to make a GW and GN equal. This is one of the example I have written down here. Uh, there are problems in ARS mains exam. There will be 2 marks fill in the blanks for in which this is one of the favorite question. Even in RBI prelims, this is one of the favorite question. As well as you can take any examination. They just give the values of different rates. They can give population rate or capital output ratio, or they can give growth rate, and then they can ask you to find out the other variable. So in examination point of view, this is very important. Policy contributions of this model are not only interpretations, but suggestions for policy actions can be taken up. Like I was telling, suppose if a country sets target growth rate of 5%, and these two variables are known, like capital output ratio is known in the economy. Say if India wants to we say India want to have 8% of GDP growth rate. So what exactly it means, and how much of investment we need to take given the capital output ratio. Capital output ratio is something which is uh, by the virtue of time series, we can calculate the capital output ratio from previous years, and then based on what is the target growth rate. Suppose if Indian government is targeting 10% of GDP growth rate in the future, so how much will be the investment needed. These things can be calculated by making use of a Harrod-Dormer model. So that is why it is very important. And this is briefly I gave a few points of Harrod-Dormer, and I know this is not sufficient, so please go and refer your textbooks. And in the aftermath of Harrod-Dormer model, the next model to come is solo growth model. So for all these models, whenever they ask in examination, and these models, why they are important is in RBI prelims, uh, for the last 2 years, they have asked a problem from a solo growth model, and solo growth model, the problem had been asked for 3 marks, and in with Harrod and Dahmer, they have asked a problem for 2 marks, and they also ask in the mains exam to write a model. So if we are asked to write a model, we have to give brief introduction about the model, why it has been proposed, and what are it in the background, what were the context, in which context it has been proposed. Followed by that is the assumptions, and then a mathematical relationship or proposition of the model, and then you have to give criticism, and then is and then what important is, you have to give what is its relevance to underdeveloped economies, or what is its relevance to Indian economy. This thing you have is very key, and which carries very significance in exam. So yeah, and let's get into this, the solo growth model. This model mainly says the steady state level of capital and how savings affect output and economic growth. uh, to give the about the model background, previous models such as the closed economy and the small open economy models provide a static view, like Keynesian model of the economy at a given point of time. So solo model allows us to take a dynamic view of how savings affect the economy over time. He has taken savings as a exogenous variable. We For the solo model, we begin with a production function, and he has assumed constant returns to scale. So he has taken output as a function of capital and labor. Since it is constant returns to scale, if you multiply by any factor, the factor can be factored out. So which is one of the key features of homogeneous production function, or the same property you can be proved using Euler's theorem. And again, one of the favorite question for the examiners. So by setting z equals 1 by L, we create per worker function. That is, by dividing the whole function with L, we take output as a function of labor, amount of capital per labor. So output per worker is a function of capital per worker. So we are writing the above equation. So this equation as small y is a function of capital per worker. Output per worker is function of capital per worker. So building this model, you you can see, we have written output per worker as function of capital per worker, and slope of this function is marginal product of capital per worker. That is output capital per worker in 1 + 1 period minus its previous period. It tells us the change in output per worker that results when we increase the capital per worker by 1. Building the model, goods market, we begin with per worker consumption and investment. Government purchases and net exports are not included in the solo model. Thus, by taking the national income identity, that is y equals consumption. So this is the mathematical derivation of the model. Uh, Output is a function of consumption plus investment. Given a savings rate and consumption rate, we can write this consumption as a function of Uh, the consumption is function of the amount of savings which have been used, which have been saved, and amount of national income which is being consumed. We can write the equation as 1 minus sy. When you multiply this factorize, you can see y is a function of c plus part of national income which is saved. That is, we can get y equals c plus I. So subsequently, we can write I is a function of savings and income. The steady state equilibrium solo model, long run equilibrium occurs at the point where both y and k are constant. That is, output per worker and capital work per worker are constant. Uh, Here you can see they have like all of the economists, every economist, they have laid primary emphasis on capital for the growth, but in solo model, he gives a picture of how much capital or how much savings are need to be invested per worker to maintain a steady state equilibrium. So yeah, output per work per capital output per worker and capital per worker, these two are endogenous variables in the model, and the exogenous variable is savings rate. So by substituting and you can see this, I have taken investment as a function of uh, s- part of savings into national income, that is. So instead of y, we are substituting it as f is a function of k, so which we got this from here. So yeah, now by substituting f capital per worker for income, the investment per worker function I equals s into y becomes a function of capital per worker. So now investment is a function of a savings rate and capital per worker. To augment the model, we define the depreciation rate. So again here we are taking depreciation rate into account, and change in capital uh, in a year can be taken as investment minus proportion of capital. The sigma k is proportion of capital which is being gone in depreciation. So so the change in capital is equals I minus proportion of capital which is taken as depreciation, and we know I is equals to s into f of k, and substituting this. So this is the key, what we can say, important equation in solo model. In steady state equilibrium, so, and this graph is again important. If our initial allocation of capital were too high, say if the capital is too high at this point, would the capital would decrease because depreciation exceeds investment. So if there is higher and higher amount of capital is there will be more depreciation, and this would automatically lead to decline in capital. And if our initial allocation were too low, if initial allocation of capital, say if it's at this point, say if it is too low, k would increase. This k would increase because investments exceed depreciation. You can see the investment curve is lying above this depreciation curve. So so the investments would exceed, so as to get at the point of equilibrium. So at the point where both k and y are constant, it must be the case that um, the portion of depreciation or investment as a function of savings and capital is equals to zero. That is, both are equal, and our equilibrium occurs at point of k star. So this is a point of k star. Yeah, at k star, depreciation equals investment. So yeah, this is the same thing. So pictorial representation, K2 is still too slow. We have to increase capital. The capital increases, and this is a process where we converge to equilibrium level of K star. Just like Harrow-Dommer model, problems are very important in this model too. You will be given you say a production function, say frequently given production function is Cobb-Douglas. You can also be provided with linear or quadratic production function, and then we have to substitute it by for amount per unit of labor, dividing by labor, we get y equals a small k power 1 by 2, and substituting this, and we have to make use of this function, that is depreciation is equals to investment function. So given savings rate, depreciation, and initial capital, we can compute time paths for our variable as we approach the steady state equilibrium. So these are the values taken, and simplifying this, we can come to an understanding of how much capital needs to be put in again, should be invested in order to maintain a particular growth rate in an economy. These are some of the pictures. So, yeah. So, and this is, we have taken down savings as exogenous variables. So when we change the savings rate, so and we know this is the equilibrium stage. So what happens if we increase savings? So this would increase the slope of our investment function and causes the function to shift up. So initially the equilibrium was here, and then when there is a shift in savings function, there is a new equilibrium with a higher level of capital and higher level of equilibrium. Similarly, lower saving rate lead to a lower steady state level of capital. So equilibrium will be somewhere around here. Conclusion: the solo growth model is a dynamic model that allows us to see how our endogenous variables, capital per worker and output per worker, are affected by the exogenous variable saving. We also see how parameters such as depreciation enter the model, and finally the effects that initial capital allocations have on time paths toward equilibrium. So yeah, this we have not taken up as it. More and more of mathematical things are there. In the next section, we have to include other exogenous variables like population and technological growth. So you again please go refer to it. There are two more curves adding up to this. One is technological growth function, and one more is population one. And also there are mathematical derivations which are equally important. And as I said, this is one of the important, very important model for our examinations. So yeah, this is all about solo SWAN model. So yeah, Praveen, I think I'm done with my presentation. So if you
Yeah,
have any
okay,
queries.
sir.
Mhm.
Okay, sir. Thank you a lot. I request all the participants, please, someone has any query regarding today's session, please ask. We know that this is little bit complicated portion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like we
and
cannot
too many mathematics.
mm,
We cannot complete this in one session, but
one
sir
session,
has
and
made.
also
Yeah,
we cannot do it in PPT mode. You can we
yeah, we will, sir.
need Blackboard.
And what happens, sir? Actually, in even in PhD curriculum in Maharashtra,
Yeah.
this portion is not covered, sir. We have to
Okay.
separately study
Mm,
it. So we know that
mm,
participant little bit confusing about that. So I
mm,
request
mm.
all the participant, please, if someone has any query regarding this session, please ask to
Yeah.
sir. And also request participant, please go through other
Mm.
books also after that sessions.
See, Vivek Rathod, he has asked a question. Is Chingan book
Yeah.
is sufficient for this? Yes, Chingan book fairly covers most of the things. But what I would say is, like Praveen was saying, in Maharashtra curriculum, they are not briefly uh, covered. This happens everywhere. So yeah, even at my masters, even at my even in PhD, they do teach, but we won't get everything and all of the things at one teaching. We have to come back and we have to read. So this is what I got in my experience, and I can also send a link for some of the YouTube, not YouTube videos. So there is one of the institution, they beautifully cover these topics, especially Harold Domer and the Solo Swan model. So yeah, along with books, complementarily, you can watch those videos and make notes of your own. So yeah, I hope Vivek, I answered you. So anybody has anything else, you can please ask me, and you are always free to text me. So we are all learning. You are free to text me. I'll be very happy to share some of my experience and also get from you.
Sir, actually, there is one book, The Economic and Development Planning by R.K. Lekhi and Joginder Singh. Is it
Yeah.
good?
Yes, I have not referred Lakey and Joginder, to be honest. So I have referred books by mostly this Jingan I have referred, and then some other materials I have referred. Like from internet, I have got few things from there. I have made my own notes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, if someone has any query, please ask. Otherwise, we concluded today's session.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone.
And yes, like I was telling, this is very very important chapter, very important subject for any examination. Even if someone is preparing for UPSC, I think in a part of where they spare up for your in questions in GS paper, in GS economics paper. So please do read these things. So yeah,
I think it's over, sir. Now we
yeah.
come.
Okay,
Thank
Praveen.
you, thank you so much for your report, sir. And definitely,
Yeah,
it will help to our
yeah,
participant also. And I would
mm,
like to thank participants also for their patience. We know that this is little bit
yeah.
complicated
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
complex topic.
Yeah,
So thank you for them also. And I would like to request all participants, please join at 3:30 with our next session with Sharath Iligar sir, who will
yeah.
take session on institution and economic development and international economics.
Yes.
Thank you so much for.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
sir.
again, any of you can text me on inbox. I'll be very happy to respond. So all of us are learning, all of us are students. So
Yeah,
we will
yeah.
share and learn. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for everyone. Have a nice day.